Just because they won't let us sail below the 60th parallel doesn't mean the Earth is flat.
Yeah, what about the accounts from the men who actually did?
What are you talking about?
William Morris, late 1700s, traversed along the Antarctic Circle until he found it.
Found what?
Summer's Gate, every Glober's worst nightmare, one of the 3 exits along the ice wall. Said the crew was too scared to go through it, but by the time they tried pulling out, it was already too late. Current yanked them through the opening into the other side, beyond the ice wall.
My God.
Sailed through these unknown waters until
what?
They were approached by a massive red ship, unlike anything they'd ever seen back home, and it started blaring an unbearable horn until they finally realized William and his crew were no harm. They brought them up on board, and the captain of this giant red ship introduced himself to William as the leader of the Ancestral Lands. Said his name was Tolliver. Yawning, William was in shock at this point, like trying to take in the fact that there was like this whole reality outside of this ice wall barrier. And Tolliver asked him what he was doing in these waters. William kind of apologetically said, like, I'm sorry, we just wanted to explore what was out here. Like, and Tolliver said, like, no, it's fine. It's just, it's been so long since we've seen anyone come from the inner ice wall. Tolliver handed William a map and he said, take this. It will lead you to the safe lands. Move swiftly now. William said, like the safe lands, like, I'm sorry, is there something dangerous out here? Like, are we in danger? And, Tolliver said, oh, my dear boy, things out here on this side are just fine. You see that place you've emerged from, those people in there are what we have to worry about. He said the leaders of the inner ice wall of your Americas are tyrannical oligarchs who will stop at nothing to keep control. And so William went back to his boat and told his crew about everything the captain said. He goes like, look, guys, I don't think we're going to be able to go back home. Like, these people are in some kind of generational standoff with us. Like, we've been lied to about everything. And as he showed them the map he was given, he goes, there's a whole other world out here. And they just looked at this map, which still circulates today, that had shown like literally 178 different worlds under the same biodome, all kind of connected by oceans. And so they took the directions to the Ancestral Lands where things were safe, and they were kindly greeted by a beautiful kind of like utopian city where everything was just kind of a peaceful, gracious, and like abundant plethora of just like life. So William was escorted into a kind of headquarter building where a sergeant said to him, William, we'd be happy to process you as a citizen to the Ancestral Lands. We are aware that you are from the inner ice wall, and we're deeply sorry about the things you've been subjected to. And William just said to him, like, but sir, my family, my people, like, they are all inside of there with no knowledge of these lands beyond. Like, what will be their fate? The sergeant said to him, like, I understand your concerns, sir. I truly do. We've been trying to liberate your realm for centuries, but your leaders are ruthless. He says to William, he goes, listen, if they find out that you've escaped, okay. If they find out you know about these lands, it could trigger another great reset. Okay, they could wipe out your guys' entire realm, leaving only an embryonic group of humans to once again reset your collective consciousness, something they've done before, and believe me, they won't hesitate to do again. And William says to him, he goes like, great, reset, sir. We what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? And the sergeant just says to him, he goes, buddy, let's just say the last time one of you escaped, you weren't wearing powdered wigs. Basically explains to him that our society in the inner ice wall has cycled through dozens of civilizations, all of which have like reached different levels of technology, kind of continually reverting back to primal beginnings every time they reset us. And so William basically agreed with his crew to claim citizenship in the Ancestral Lands, and they pretty much lived an amazing life for the next 10 years. But William's knowledge drove him crazy. Although he'd met a woman here and gotten married, he couldn't help but want to go back to the inner ice wall. And one day they both went missing. They took a boat back to the ice wall, and he distributed as much of this information into the Americas and European nations as he possibly could. And this is where all the flat earth speculation has reemerged from.
Beyond the ice walls.
So, when people continually ask me to show them the edge, how? Because right inside this one little ice ring right here is the known lands, okay? Outside that, you've got the Ancestral Republic, which is right here. I'm sure you've heard of them if you've read The Navigator That Crossed the Ice Wall. But when someone like Elon Musk says he wants to go to Mars, Land of Mars, right here. Human colony. Okay? So, let me show you a little bit of something. Let me show you something. Lands of the Anunnaki, right here. That's one of our controllers. You see how close they are to us? How easy it would be to reach us? And here's another one. The lands of the custodians. They're pretty close too. But I'm saying I'd guesstimate that at maybe 60, 70,000 miles. A lot easier to fly that distance than to come from outer space, right? But let's look around here. We got lands of Neptune. Here's the planets, right? Lands of Neptune. Lands of Venus. Lands of Saturn. Lands of Jupiter. And inside lands of Jupiter, you got the lands of Zeus. So now we start getting into some mythology here. Pegasus. Lands of Hercules. Cassiopeia, even a galaxy. Look at there, Andromeda, right? But if you look at the edge of this map, it's cut off. So this plane is much, much, much larger than this. There's supposedly 178 domes. This isn't hardly any of them. You know, this is just a small portion of that. But what makes more sense to you? That the aliens come from outer space, way out in an endless vacuum, or they just come from like here or like here and just fly there? They can just fly to us. Think about that next time you ask someone to show you the edge.
But they were in a facility, and listening to what they told us as far as the facility, it was a big opening facility, they explained to us, and there was some beings walking around, and there were rooms. But they were not in a room. They were in an open area, but they were on a table and they couldn't move. So then we started an investigation. And one of the parts of the investigation, we flew over the area some days later in a helicopter. And the first flight over the area, we didn't see anything. We just saw the mountain. There was some testing facilities east of the mountain range, but we didn't see anything else. But as that helicopter banked to the west, and I asked the pilot, let's make one more pass around it, but this time let's go right over the top of the mountain. When we went over the top of the mountain was open. We could see down into the mountain. I said, my God, look at this. And the other agent on board the helicopter said, that mountain just opened. Because before it wasn't open when we flew over it 15 or 20 minutes earlier.
Is the opening like a mile or 2 miles, or?
I would say the opening was probably at least a mile. And I didn't know we had the technology to do that, number one. And I thought it was our base. And that's why I tell the helicopter pilot, hey, let's get a little bit lower to look at this. What kind of base they have down there? I'm thinking of S4,
right,
and I'm thinking of Papoose. And he was a little reluctant to do that because he didn't know what was down there either. He said, well, I'll get as close as I feel safe, because he's a pilot, so he's in control of the aircraft. So we got a little lower, and we could see the distinct structures down there. There were like buildings inside here, little buildings all around. There were probably a dozen of these little buildings. They appeared to be rectangle or square structures. They didn't have any peak roofs on it. There was something reflective coming up. We could see the area was lit up, so there was lights down there. They were around the edge of the mountain, inside this hollow mountain, and then in the center area it was all open, and there was something in that center area that from our altitude I couldn't make out. But we figured, when I started thinking about it more, that was the alien craft that these two women had contact with. That mountain opened, and that's where that craft went and hid. So we flew back to Tonopah. We landed at Tonopah. Immediately we went to the base commander's office. And we asked the base commander, what's going on at Urania Mountain? He said, what are you talking about? I said, do you have anything that you can tell us about Urania Mountain? He said, no. I said, is that no because we're not cleared, or no because you don't know? He got very upset with us. Now, here we are, special agents. We're federal agents, and he's a full-bird colonel in the Air Force. And you understand the mentality a full-blooded colonel had. This is my base. Don't ask me questions about my base.
The fact he got upset already red flagged it.
Exactly. And I said, well, we need to know because something happened out here. And then we briefed him on it. He said, I'm not at liberty to discuss it any further. You guys can leave my office. So we said, thank you, sir. And we left his office. Then we immediately responded by sending a teletype, the old teletype system, up our chain of command. I said, we need to know what's going on out there. And we need to get permission. Now, he worked for a numbered Air Force commander at Edwards Air Force Base. So we thought, well, we'll go to him. He was general, one-star general, brigadier general, and we'll ask him to let that commander give us permission to find out. Well, we went to the general at Edwards Air Force Base. He didn't know anything about it. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. As far as I know, there's nothing going on out there. So then he went to the KY3. It's a secure phone. You can talk classified up to top secret over it. He calls him. He said, what's going on at Uranium Mountain? And the colonel tells the general, General, I can't tell you. And again, the general says, you can't tell me because you don't know, or you can't tell me because I'm not briefed. He said, General, I just can't tell you. Now that upset the general. Now he's a one-star general. So he tells me, he says, I'm going to get you the security clearance that you need because I'm about ready to relieve that colonel of his command out there. So he made some phone calls. We left and went back to Groom Lake. We'd been on a plane, T-39. We'd flown.
Nice.
And old pal, that was late afternoon, and I get a call from my boss, and my boss tells me, you go up to see the colonel at Tonopah. He's going to brief you.
Wow.
So it was too late in that afternoon. We waited the next day. We went up there. He sits down with us. He's red-faced. You know he's upset. You know he doesn't want to do
Went over his head.
Right, went over his head. I said, sir, I'm sorry that I had to do that, but he said, you should have came back to me and asked me again. I said, you said to get out of my office, and we did. He said, there's something going on down there that we don't know about. I said, what are you talking about? He said, listen, it's beyond our capability. You want to go down there, you go down there. But you better take a gun with you. I don't know, what kind of gun do you need us to take? He said, an M16. And I said, why would we want to take an M16 down there? He said, you'll find out when you get there. I said, you can't give us any more information than that? He said, I don't know. I really don't know. And I felt that he was sincere there, that he didn't know. I said, well, who would we talk to? So he said, well, the chief of security police. So I went to the chief of security police, who was at the time a major, and I asked the major, I said, we want to go down to Urania. He said, I need to send some troops down there with you. I said, why? What's going on down there? He said, we really don't know. I said, you want to tell me in straight words what you're talking about? He said, he looked around the room. He said, let's go into the other room. So we went in the back room. It was like a supply room. He sat down, he looked down on the floor, and he kind of looked around. He said, there's aliens living in that mountain. I said, extraterrestrial aliens. Yep. I said, that's why the mountain opens. Shakes his head. I said, so what are we going to find when we go down there? He said, we only went down there once, and we never went back. So I said, you went down there, you climbed the mountain? He said, no. There's a tunnel. The old uranium mine is there, and there's a tunnel that leads the old mine shaft. We had built that, the test site built that for a testing area. They were going to test lasers in it. And when they got a certain point into the mountain, about a mile in, they realized they were visitors there. And this is what he's telling us. So we got out of there. So I said, the United States Air Force, the United States Army is pulling out of a place that you saying, did you actually see him? He said, no, I never saw him. So I said, I want to go down there. So I got a couple agents, and there was a security detail of 12 to 15 of them, I believe, security police. And they were armed. I didn't take an M16. We didn't take it. We had them, But I was
Sure.
trained in them, but I didn't take them. I had my handgun.
Plus, you had the whole crew.
Yeah, plus those guys are going to protect us. At least I hope. So we went down there, we walked in. I mean, we went in, and they had erected a huge vault door because of what they found inside. And there was combination locks and so forth, and it took some time for it to get the big vault door open. And the security guys go, there it is. I said, well, you guys going in with us? And they kind of looked at each other. It was a lieutenant that was a leader of them. If you insist. I said, have you been here before? He said, yeah. I said, have you seen anything? He shakes his head, yeah. I said, what are they extraterrestrials? What do they look like? He said, they're pretty hideous looking. I said, did you shoot him or no, they never fired at us and we never fired at them. We just got out of there. And this is all like a movie plot to me.
Right. No,
I'm saying, I'm looking at my age, and I don't believe any of that. I really seriously don't believe it.
Yeah,
I think there was, my thinking was, there's something else down there that they want to scare us away, form of disinformation that they were trying to pull on us.
Right, that's what I would think.
And I'm saying, you know what? I actually think you guys know what's there. Some kind of secret facility, training facility, or research facility, and you just don't want us to know about it. He said, no, sir. I'm telling you. I said, well, let's go. I'm going to see these aliens. The only light I could see was the light coming out of the tunnel area, or the opening that was in front of us, which was probably another 75 yards in front of us. As we kept walking forward, I had a flashlight on, the agent next to me had a flashlight on, and there was lights behind us from the security police. As we get closer, we see a light. We see that something's illuminated in there. And we hear this humming sound. And I asked the lieutenant, I said, what's that? What's that sound? Is that some kind of experiment? He said, I don't know. Seriously, sir, I'm telling you, I don't know. So we get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. And I realized something's going on in here. The security force stayed their ground. And they said, the lieutenant said to me, we got your back, but we're not going farther. As I got close to the opening, this being appeared as if he walked around the corner. What I could see from that angle, or with that position, and I'm about 50 yards from the being, it was tall, over 6 foot tall, had a very large appendage coming out of its face, similar to what the ladies described as an elephant nose. It wasn't as long as the elephant nose. It came out, and I wasn't sure if it was some kind of a breathing apparatus that was placed over their face. I couldn't see the eyes because the being is silhouetted in the light. I had a flashlight. Flashlight wasn't that strong. I couldn't totally illuminate the being. Had very long arms, probably went down to what I would call its knees. Had very long fingers. It appeared to me to be reptilian looking. Had a very long, distorted face, almost as if the being had pop marks or something else on its face. And I thought about this later, and the being might have had some kind of facial mask on, and that's what the appendage was.
Sounds like it, yes.
Yeah, because it might not be able to breathe our atmosphere, or maybe too much oxygen or not enough. Didn't have any ears that I could see. But again, I'm looking at it and I'm shining a flashlight on it. At that point, I felt discretion's the better part of valor. I never drew my weapon. The agent next to me, he had more combat experience in Vietnam. He was a Vietnam vet. He did pull his weapon, but he had it down to his side.
How was he responding to this encounter?
He said to me, we got to be careful of it. He was calm, but he said, we got to be careful of that. And I said, I'm not sure if that's just a human dressed up in a suit. He said, you're nuts. He said, that's no human dressed up in a suit. I didn't know this at the time, but he saw other beings farther away, because he's at a different angle. He's over here. He's probably 3 or 4 feet away from me. And he didn't say that to me at the time, but later on he told me. So then I decided let's just get out. Let's just retreat back to the vault door.
Was there any communication or sounds going on that you could hear? Was there any movement with the being to show any type of force?
When I moved forward, the being moved forward. When I stopped, it stopped. I didn't see it have any weapons in its hand. I didn't see any weapons anywhere else. I didn't hear or detect any voices. It wasn't as if it was trying to communicate with me. I didn't hear anything in my mind. We continue hearing the humming sound. I didn't want to move. I didn't move any closer. I backed up a couple steps. It didn't move. And then I turned around and went back.
Did you casually turn around and walk away? Or was everyone running? Or any chaos going on there with the crew?
We casually. My partner, Steve, he continued looking forward. Like I said, he's a combat veteran. This guy had been in Vietnam, not me, but he was in Vietnam. He engaged enemies. He was more combat oriented than I was. Although I had a lot of training, but I didn't have that type of training. I turned around. I turned my back on the being. He didn't. He walked backwards. And when I saw him walking backwards, then I turned to my left and I realized I better keep an eye. All the time we were moving back another 50 yards to the vault door, and at no time did that being move. The being stood its ground. The being never made any hostile gestures towards us. Its arms were continually down to its side. The being never moved. And then we shut the vault door, and that was it. So then I went back to the base and I talked to the commander. ETs have penetrated a United States Air Force base, right, the most secret base on Earth, and you guys don't know anything about it? He said, we're working on it. I said, you got a plan? He said, we got a plan. I said, what's the plan? He said, well, we got to coordinate with the highest level. I said, well, what's your plan? He said, well, once we get the plan, we'll let you know. So I went back and I did a long report, pages of report, and I sent the report up. And I figured a couple days I'd respond back. I think we got back at 6, 7 o'clock at night. I did a report, sent it up. I went back to the dorm and came in the office about 6 in the morning. And we had a security policeman in there that guards the facility. He said, sir, you Special Agent Doty? I said, yes. He said, you need to call this number as soon as possible. I looked at the number. It was a Audubon, Audubon secure number, sure, DNN number, DSN number. Mm-hmm. So I went into the KY, called up, and it was Colonel Law, who's the commander of counterintelligence for OSI. He said, you need to fly to Washington tomorrow. He said, I got a special mission aircraft at Nellis that's going to fly you and this other special agent to Washington.
A special mission aircraft. Special mission
aircraft, and that's really unheard of. Presidential support details. When we were in DEFCON 2 or something like that, maybe.
Right.
I said, okay, he'll be at Nellis. So I got the other agent. We went out to Nellis the next day. They flew it. Actually, it was that afternoon. Flew us. We got to Washington, landed at Andrews, went to our OSI headquarters at Bowling.
Right.
And went into the secure room. And the colonel says, we got a major problem out there. I said, is this something I did, sir? I was kind of scared that he's going to chew my butt for something. I was so persistent. He said, no, you did everything right. He said, they've hit it on us. Nobody up here knew about it. I said, what? He said, nobody within headquarters staff, Air Force headquarters, Pentagon, knew about it. Secretary of the Air Force didn't know about it. The Secretary of Defense didn't know about it.
They keep it very compartmentalized, and people don't realize that, a lot of these, heads of state and people, even the president, might not know about things like this that are going on out there.
Plausible deniability, I think it would be. And I said, I can't believe I can't believe it. He said, I couldn't believe it either, but I started asking questions, and I had to go over and brief the Secretary of Defense. He was outraged. Caspar Weinberger. Well, what? He didn't believe any of it. He said, you guys are making this up? Is this part of a war game? Is this part of some kind of psychological game? No, we got proof of it. We saw it. So then the ball kept rolling, and we briefed. I briefed a couple other people, a group of people, and we went back. And a short time later, we were told that it was going to be taken care of. And I kept asking the question, how is it going to be taken care of? He said, we're going to take care of it. We got nuclear weapons at Nevada test site. We're going to use that facility as testing of a weapon system.
So did you know and follow up on that, or was that the last briefing that you received on that?
That was the last briefing I received. Although they had a test in Nevada test site, Area 20, which is in the northwest portion of the Nevada test site. And they claimed that the detonation of this normal routine nuclear weapon that they were testing was going to occur there, but in actuality it occurred at Uranium Mountain. They did it all at Uranium. I don't know how, I wasn't ever privy into how they did it, how they dropped it, how they placed it in there. But it had to have been some team of people, soldiers or something that got it in. I don't know. I was never briefed on it. I just know that the explosion occurred because we could feel it to where we were at.
Do you think there's any repercussions for us blowing that mountain up with the extraterrestrial base and craft there? Did you ever hear of anything negative that came back on us because we did this?
Yes. But that would be something that would be still probably classified. There was a couple incidents that we felt, we OSI felt was repercussions for it. Although the government, the Air Force itself never readily admitted it. But there was some incidents happened, bodies found, things happened, our facilities destroyed. We had without going into great detail, we had a very, very, very expensive facility, millions and millions of dollars, that was located in a remote area, Tonopah, and that was destroyed months after we destroyed that mountain. Now, I don't know for a fact that it was a retaliation, but I think the government, and we figured it was.